I'm Laila Biali, the pianist, singer, and songwriter. And my project, Wintersongs, was a little bit of a surprise. I went to the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity, which is where I do most of my creative work. And I had one idea about what I would accomplish during my time there. But when I arrived, it was late November of 2021, and the center had given me this incredible cabin right in the middle of the woods. And I had floor-to-ceiling glass windows, a beautiful grand piano, and I was looking out on these nature scenes, and I found myself writing what was a soundtrack for winter. The first song to come out was Drifting Down Ice. It's the first track on the record, and then everything just flowed from there. Wintersongs is unlike any other project I've released to date. I was raised a classical musician. In fact, I wanted to be a concert pianist, but then I was in a car accident that totally changed my life. And during my years recovering, I segued to jazz. But I always still held a very deep love for classical music. And so with this project, I was hearing an approach at the piano that had certain classical influences. And almost immediately from the first notes, I could also hear a string quartet. But I didn't want to do that writing myself, so I brought in Drew Jureka, an incredible arranger, and he set all these songs for a string quartet, the Venuti String Quartet, featuring Rebecca Wolkstein on violin, Drew on violin and bandoneon, and Shannon Knights on viola, and Amal Arulanandam on cello. Because this project took a few years to kind of marinate and go from concept to realization, every passing spring and summer, Ben, my husband, Ben Whitman, and I, we would come up with more ideas. And so things just began to expand from one year to the next. And actually, in the summer of 2023, Rob Mathis entered the picture, and Rob is the most incredible orchestrator. He's worked with Bruce Springsteen, Sting, Vanessa Williams, the list goes on. And ever since I first heard his work, I've wanted to collaborate with him. And so in spring of 2022, Ben, my co-producer, and I, we were like, let's do it. Let's take a few of these songs and let's expand them to feature a 19-piece chamber orchestra. Enter Rob Mathis. So he partnered with us, he squeezed us into his schedule, he was so busy, came up to Toronto from New York City or the New York area, and we dove into the studio and tracked his exquisite arrangements, and they are such a beautiful complement to the more stripped down arrangements that Drew Jureka did for quartet. One of the highlights for me of this project was working with all kinds of incredible musicians, including the great Jane Bennett on sax and flute. I admired Jane kind of from a distance for decades, and I could really hear her sound on this music. So this was the first chance that I got to actually work with her up close and personal, and she's been touring the project with us live. It has been such a treat. So George Kohler and Ben Whitman round out the rhythm section on this project, and I've been working with them both for years. And what I love about them as musicians is that I might have a certain idea about how the music should sound, and while I know how they will approach it in a way, because I've worked with them for so long, they always surprise me. It was an extra special treat to work with Laurie Gemmell on harp. My whole life I wanted to play the harp. And Laurie actually let me try her instrument when she was in the studio, and it's just stunning. It brings such a beautiful, magical, celestial element to this music. So the singers we brought in on a moment's notice. Ben and I are very spontaneous, and there's a song on the album called Keep On Moving that's just got, it's got some verve. And we could hear some background singers, and so we called up three of my favorites, Geneviève Marantet, Joanna Majoko, and Jackson Welshner, and they knocked it out of the park. I've never been a winter person. I grew up in Vancouver. It rains a lot in Vancouver. We don't get a lot of snow. But I married a boy from Vermont who used to compete as a skier. And so, as soon as we got married and, we lived in New York for a stretch, but then we moved up to Toronto where we still live. And Ben winter after winter would, put on his skis and go to wherever he could find snow. He could not wait for the season to arrive. And so over time, he helped me fall in love with winter. But then the Banff Centre and Banff, the incredible town of Banff, sealed the deal for me. I totally fell in love with winter while I was there. And that's what I hope this music does for people. I hope that during what can be kind of a cold and harsh time of year, it just wraps around them like a warm hug. I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but that's what I want. I want this project to feel cozy and welcoming and warm.